बना दीजिए ना co-host. Hi Sibhat, are you able to share your screen?
Sibhat bhai, I don't see Sibhat bhai's name
No.
there.
The
No,
number
no.
is actually Sibhat's number.
Sibhat bhai, you can put your name also.
Yeah,
Please,
I have some difficulty.
is it 5043?
Yeah,
5043. Yeah. Okay, you can start. Bismillah.
Yeah. Let me know once you see the screen, once presentation. Can you see the presentation?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see the presentation now. What it takes to
Yeah.
realize the 5G triangle. Yeah, you can start. Bismillah.
Yeah. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. Sorry for some jitter initial. I had some connectivity problems. I'm unable to log into Zoom. I don't know why. Okay, let's start. I am Sibhat Ali Khan. I did my PhD from IIT Hyderabad. I'm currently working as a research engineer in IIT Hyderabad Innovation Hub. Let me, before actually start, get into the 5G stuff, let me briefly take you through my research journey. When I applied for the PhD, I got admissions in both IIT Bombay and IIT Hyderabad. In IIT Bombay, I got under a professor who is well known for his humility and friendliness. I don't disclose his name. Everyone, including me, thought I will be joining IIT Bombay. I did mashwara with Dr. Zafar. Now he's a Professor Zafar. He told me one thing. He told that IIT Bombay का tag तो बहुत वजनी है, मगर आप IIT हैदराबाद में ले लो. And then I took, as we say, I think we just blindly follow the advices of our elders. I just took his advice and took the admission at IIT Hyderabad. Of course, I need to face severe backlash from my friends and all. But today I can confidently say that that's the best decision that I took in my life. I think down the presentation you may also realize it, hopefully. That's one thing. That's the biggest advantage that I saw in my life regarding the mashwara. That's one thing. Yeah. Coming to this, as soon as I completed the first semester, my professor asked me to look into the uplink channels of 4G systems. Traditionally, the uplink channels, there are 3 uplink channels mainly in the 4G system. He asked me to look in. Unfortunately, since I was not from communication background, I did my master's in controls. It was completely Greek and Latin for me, looking at the specs of 4G, because specs are written in very abstract way. The specification of any technology are not very lucidly written, but they're very abstract. I somehow took it as a challenge, and I started looking into the specs. Later, I developed the transmitter for each of the channel. And then subsequently, I developed the receiver algorithm for each channel. Alhamdulillah, I got 2 patents out of it. One is granted, another is still in review, being an Indian patent. And then not only that, the good thing that happened to me, Alhamdulillah, with the grace of Allah, is I not only developed the algorithms, but I could convince a on-board company, and we ported our algorithms into real systems. I was in Bangalore for 5 months for this activity. I took my algorithms and first proved that those algorithms are better than any other algorithm that they had. And we could able to successfully port them into their system, and we got almost 3.5x throughput gain with those algorithms on field on the real deployed system. This one thing happened with me. Yeah, whichever that is, by that time I had this activity was in. The first set of specs are rolled on. I started working on the 5G channels. I could able to contribute quite a much there. We got 3 patents and 1 journal paper out of it. With whatever expertise that I gained with the 5G and 4G RX algorithms, I could sense some holes and found some missing elements in the specs by themselves. For that purpose, what we did is me and my professor started digging into specs more deeper, and then we contributed towards the specifications. This, you can see the third circle, TX architecture, is mainly related to spec activity. We actually contributed quite, significantly to the specs. We can see here. I think in the course of in the due course, we got some patents and papers and all those things. This is actually the spec thing. This is the first time any academic body has done in India. I think we have, you see 4 boxes here. These are the contribution that we made in the 3GPP standards, and some of them got accepted in the accepted to be a part of 5G standards as well. You can see them. I believe that this is the first time any Indian patent is went into the 3GPP standards. There was no presence of India in 4G. In 5G, we were the one who are representing the India. At least 2 to 3 patents are there in 5G standard as of today. We are working on few of them. Hopefully, a couple of more may go through. This is the research part of it. I just don't spend much time on it. Yeah. Coming on to the 5G business. This slide pretty much known to everyone, but let me try to refresh your memories. For 2G is mostly about basic voice communication, and 3G is a flop. I don't talk much on it. And 4G is where we saw the high data rates, which enabled the video calls and online transactions, online applications, and much more. You can see it from 2G, 3G, 4G. It is more about the mobile phone. It's more about mobile phone and the data rates. But 5G is not only about data rates. It got much more into its folds. Like that's why 5G is both evolutionary in terms of data rates and also revolutionary in terms of new services. Yeah. Yeah, this is a typical 5G triangle. You can see that 5G can be essentially thought as of 3 core ideas. One is eMBB. eMBB is more about having the high link speed to support the data hungry applications like 8K video streaming and virtual reality, fixed access and all those things. You can see all these things here. This is more into that. This is like an extension to 4G. The other 2 are relatively new. This one is the left side is machine type communications, which is more to deal with the IoT. I think today we have the technology called narrowband IoT to support IoT devices. but 5G is more, I think, more smarter than the existing ones in terms that 5G got many flexible slot structures, numerologies. The structure of it fits very well to the narrowband, high voltage applications. This is one thing. The other is the third layer is quite new and quite important. It's called ultra reliable, low latency communication. This is more to deal with the human to machine, machine to machine communications. For example, if suppose a doctor is doing a robotic surgery remotely, then the turnaround time, like the instructions that doctor give to the robot should be quickly reach him, and also the turnaround time, whatever the robot does, doctor should be able to monitor remotely on his screen. The turnaround time should be very low, very low in terms. It should be with the order of microseconds, in fact, and also the reliability should be very high. It's not like doctor is saying something and robot is doing something. The doctor said to cut the artery and robot cut the vein. It should not happen. The reliability should also be the utmost important. Yeah, this is the three major core groups of the 5G. Today, as of today, we are still in the EMBB era. We not yet realized MMTC and URLLC. Let's see. Yeah, this is quite a bit what I told. These are the applications that fall into EMBB. You can see video calling, fixed wireless, and ultra high definition videos, and all. And this massive scale component, these are all these things. You can see there's something marked in green here. I think. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Whatever marked in green is all the services are available today in some form of 4G or the early deployments in 5G. Okay, these are already there. And whatever been not marked in red, the specs by themselves are not yet finalized, and there is no deployment as such for whatever for machine type and URLLC. We are yet to go there. Okay. And then let me summarize where we are today. 5G mainly designed to operate in two bands, FR1, FR2. FR1 is called sub-6 band, any carrier frequency less than 6 gigahertz. We see a bandwidth of 100 megahertz in this band. And other is a millimeter band, where the carrier frequency is quite high, anywhere ranging 24, 25 till 52. And the good thing is we get a bandwidth of 800 megahertz in this band. This is one thing. As of now, as with the early deployments of 5G, we could see a peak speeds of 2 to 3 gigabits per second as of today, which supposedly will be going till 20 Gbps down the line. With the evolving technology, with the high data rate, one thing that is also expected with 5G is the lower cost per bit. It is expected to be at least 10 times lesser than what we are seeing in 4G. Potentially, maybe because of two reasons. One is in millimeter band, the bandwidth is quite cheap compared to sub-6 band. The other thing is when the data rates are high, subsequent consumption will also be high. When you cost at the bit rate level, the overall cost will go down. That's one thing. As far as the deployment is concerned, today we have early 5G in almost 40 countries. In some countries, it is widely deployed. In some countries, it is mildly deployed. We have already 80 million subscribers, 55 being in China. China has rolled out 5G in almost 100 cities, more than 100 cities, mostly in FR1, around 3.5 gigahertz frequency. Whereas the US has also rolled out, but mostly in FR2, around 28 gigahertz. India is yet to roll out. That might be around 2.6 or 2.7 gigahertz. That's where we are. Yeah. Having said that, see, in the next 3 slides, I will try to show the emphasis that industry today is putting on the R&D activities. Since it is a research scholars forum, I would like to emphasize, how the industry has been what efforts and what emphasis each industry is putting into its R&D wing. This is core ICT. ICT stands for Information Communication Technology. It is a broader scope of information technology. It covers all like the mobile, internet, what to say, wireless, Wi-Fi, everything comes under its fold. This ICT. This is the core ICT stack. You can see the top layer is application layer, which is visible to the user, which actually the end user uses. It comprises of social media applications, online transactions, defense, agriculture, whatever it is. This is what end user sees. This is what you and me sees. Other than that, yeah, the second is services. This layer actually invokes the services to the end user. Okay, these guys, the services people will buy the technology. Okay, and then they will facilitate the services to the end user. And the core ICT is the crux where R&D goes in. This comprises of radios, antennas, and all those stuff. This is where we have the patents, IPs, everything falls under core ICT. I just focus on what happens in core ICT. Yeah, I think this is not correct. Okay, there is some mistake here. See, yeah. The first two blocks, like systems design and semiconductors, okay, they fall under IP and design category. There should not be arrow here. It's a mistake. And the bottom three components constitute actual manufacturing. Let me tell you what happens here. See, there will be a set of people who actually design the system and hold the IP. These are the very demanding people in the industry. What they do is they write the algorithm for each module, okay, and they validate it, they vet it, they validate it, and build a complete system and then test it and validate it and hold this IP. And then they carry forward this design to the something called implementation team. I think there's some mistakes, sorry. There's something called implementation team. What they do is this implementation people will take the ideas of system engineers. They will code those ideas into DSPs, FPGAs, SX, and so on. And they try to optimize those codes to the highest level, such that they fit it into the latencies required, because we want each module to complete within a certain time, right? That's why they try to optimize it to the highest level, and then they meet the latency requirement. If suppose if any module is taking more time, then they go back to the system engineer saying that, hey, your module is taking last time, can you do something to it? Then he will rework on the algorithm. And then he modifies it something, and then he try to fit it in the latency budgets. That's what happens in the system design and semiconductor. These two, the people who work in these two blocks never touches the hardware. They don't know what hardware is. They never touches the hardware. Once the semiconductor people design the architecture, that will go into the actual semiconductor manufacturing, and then followed with some advanced components like sensors, actuators, lenses, and so on. And then this semiconductor chip and then this advanced components come to the assembly and testing. Okay, and this is the low skill job, assembly and testing, and this is where India contributes today. And the system and semiconductors, these are the teams which hold most of the patents, IPs, and designs. And I think many of you might be knowing, the system design engineers are the most demanding engineers. These people need a wide range of skill set, like They should have an understanding of what the specification says. They should know the signal processing. They should know the mathematics. They should try to develop the more robust algorithms and suboptimal algorithms if required. They need to have all those skill sets. That's why even when we see at the recruitment in IITs, for example, Qualcomm comes and picks some n number of people, n number of students from IIT, and then among n they identify the smartest. They identify the smartest of them, and then they again call those subset of people to the one more round of interview. Among them, they pick few who they feel they suit the purpose, and generally the remuneration that those students get will be twice that of what other guys get. This is what at least I have seen in IIT Hyderabad. Yeah. With respect to EBITDA, this is what you can see. This is the amalgam of all the companies that we see today. You can see the lion's share goes to system design. And then if you combine the semiconductor and system design into one group, it almost corresponds to $920 billion among all $1,600 billion. Okay, and the assemblies and testing is where India contributes today. This got very less and EBITDA, right? Yeah. To give one more example, I think this is how the industry stacks today. This is I overheard my professor saying sometime back, Huawei has almost sent 1 crore, 1 lakh crore in 2018 for its R&D activities. You can see how much emphasis each industry is putting on the R&D and on the research and development wing. And one thing I can pretty much surely say is, since you are all research scholars over here, if you can develop if you can develop the appropriate skill set, okay, apart from getting papers and all, and you will be in very high demand for the industries. I know the people are looking for system engineers, we don't get them. This is one thing I want to at least suggest to the participants over here. It's very much needed. I mean, if you can develop the appropriate skill set, you will be in very high demand. Yeah. I'll give one more example. See, if you suppose if there's a smartphone which costs about $600, $300 goes into its R&D and its profit. The other $300 is for its manufacturing. Okay, and you see the labor, right? It's 3%. Okay, 3% among $600 is $18. It's simple. Yeah, this is where today India contributes. This is where our presence is in today. We are nowhere in the rest of the things. Yeah. Having said that, I just get back to the 5G business. See, as I mentioned earlier, we have 3 common core groups in 5G, and for each group, these 5 are the enablers. These are the enablers. A massive multi-user MIMO is one of the key enabler to get the peak throughputs and peak data rates. And the higher bandwidth, I already told you that we get 100 till 800 megahertz in 5G compared to 20 megahertz in 4G. So one thing, and I will be talking about this massive MIMO in this presentation down the line. If time permits, we can see the other 2 later. I think to get a reliable, as we mentioned in URLLC, we should have a reliable link. It should not happen that you instruct your autonomous car one thing and it does other thing, and the link is broken between. It should not happen. So that to happen, 5G has invoked a principle called COMP, coordinated multi-point, where a user will see the transmissions from receptions from the multiple base stations, and he does a diversity combining, enhancing the link reliability. That's one thing. We'll talk it later in some other sessions. We'll just skip it. Today I just focus on the massive MIMO. I know this is a pretty dry concept. People who are into communication know that it's a pretty dry concept. I will try to simplify it using some figures and examples. Um, yeah, I just try to mention what it is and how it is realized. Yeah, these are some textbook definitions. I just don't want to dwell into them. And this is the predominantly this is the predominant technology that is today to enable high speed. In nutshell, this is all about having the multiple antennas at the base station and how do you make use of them to improve the data rate. That's what in nutshell it means. Yeah. Let me give one toy example to make you understand what this massive MIMO is. See, let's consider a case where there are 3 employees, okay, from the same company, drawing 1 lakh per month, let's say. And the first guy is he's a fuzul kharch, okay. He don't see any barakat, and he ends up in saving only 5% of his salary. The other guy is so-called better planner. He sends, I mean, he managed to save 30% of his salary. Okay. I think if you can able to understand this example, I believe that you know half of the communication. The other guy is the so-called Sakhi who is pretty much helps others and he gives the charities wherever required, and there's a lot of barakat in him for him, and then he can end up in saving 50% of his salary. With this meager 5% savings, over the period of time, he can able to get only a 2-wheeler. Okay, this guy can get a Santo. You see Santo, right? Okay. This guy can able to get a Kia Carnival and down the line over the same period of time. Over the same period of time, this guy can afford only scooter. This guy can get a Kia. See, the interesting thing is, with this scooter, he can only offer 2 passengers per ride. This guy can take 5. The guy can take 8. Okay, you please try to understand this analogy. Okay, so this is, if you can understand this, I think things will be better. This typically represent the communication link between transmitter and receiver. Okay, I hope if you understand this. There are 3 key takeaways in this slide, at least that what I can see. One thing is, it is the barakat which is more important than your actual salary, right? Okay. The other is the bigger the barakat is, the better vehicle you can afford, and the more passengers you can carry. That's the one thing. Okay. The other is, see, I have put some numbers here representing expenses 95, 70, 40. You can see these numbers are on an average. They may change every month, right? Okay. I mean to say is this expenditure is random. Getting this right? Okay. Let me turn this analogy into the communication terminology. Yes. This is what I told. Like barakat is more important than your actual salary. Signal to noise ratio, a parameter called signal to noise ratio, is more important than your actual transmit power. Okay, this is the thing. You may pump with whatever power you want, but what is more important is your signal to noise ratio. And similarly, again, the higher the SNR is, the more data you can pump. Similar to this analogy. You can see if SNR is high, you can send your data using the modulation called QPSK, which can carry only 2 bits per symbol. Essentially, in the current 5G specs, with respect to current 5G specs, it can carry only 77 Mbps data. Whereas if SNR is high, you can pump your data with 256 QAM. These are modulation schemes. Don't worry about if someone not know. Don't worry about it. These are some modulation schemes which can carry 8 bits per symbol. If you go on calculating, it can carry 500 Mbps. Okay, and also the wireless channel between transmitter and the way these expenses are random. The channel between the transmitter and this is random. That's the biggest headache that the communication engineers got. We got two biggest headaches. One is the channel is random, other is noise. Okay. This is the thing. I hope you understood this. Yeah, Mirza bhai, you can.
The last one. First 2
Yeah.
points I have understood. Yeah. I don't know about others. The last one,
Yeah.
you can.
Yes. See, you see, right? I have quoted something called 95%. These are the expenses incurred in each month. Okay. This is an average. It doesn't mean that if you see some expenses in September month, you can't see the same expenses in October also, right? They are unpredictable.
Yeah.
Okay. Similarly, the medium between transmitter and receiver. Okay. I will just show you in the next slide. That is also random. This is a realization of what I just told. Okay. This is your data source. For example, your data file or whatever it is, your video file or whatever it is. Okay. And then is a modulation scheme that I just mentioned. This can be QPSK, QAM, whatever it is. And then the modulator is the power. This is the power with which the actual antenna pumps at the transmitter. And this is the channel which it goes through. Your data will go through this path to a wireless channel, and then it gets decoded at the receiver. I think the upper part is transmitter, the lower part is receiver. Okay, and then this is where you measure the SNR. This is where you actually measure the SNR. If SNR is high, then this modulator selector can select the higher end modulation and pump the more data. If it is low, then you can't pump more data. You need to scale down your modulation and go and should adjust with the smaller data rates. Okay, what I mean is the channel that you are seeing between the power amplifier and the demodulator. This particular channel is random. Okay, it doesn't behave unique always. I mean, this has got its own properties. Okay, this is the one thing. Now our problem boils down to, with respect to this slide, our problem boils down to, it is pretty evident, right? If you want to have high data rates, then you should have high SNR. Okay, now our problem boils down to how to maximize the SNR. Okay, now in the next couple of slides, I will try to explain how massive MIMO will facilitate in maximizing the SNR. Yeah, in some broad sense, you can think SNR as the final received signal power after all the losses of taken away. See, it's very clear, right? See, we have two type of antennas here. One is omnidirectional or isotropic, other is directional. Okay, the guy sitting in left hand side will pump his power equally in all directions, but the guy sitting on right hand side, the directional antenna, will pump his power only in certain direction. Okay, and it's very clear, right? If you locate a user at certain distance, some x, in both the cases, the guy seen on right hand side will get more power. It's like a simple thing. A man having a 1 crore property, splitting his property among 3 sons, and the other guy having the same property, splitting his property among 10 sons. Okay, the property per son is higher in this case, right? In the directional case, it's pretty much same. Got it, right?
Yeah.
This is what exactly we did in 2G. Okay, we replaced the omnidirectional antennas with the directional antennas, and then we somehow improved the SNR. But the question is that sufficient? Will that serve the purpose in 4G, in 5G? Let's see what it does. This is what the directional antenna does. The leftmost one, this one. I hope you can see my mouse pointing.
Yes.
Yeah. See, this is the directional antenna. You can see there is a wider beam here. A user sitting here will receive the highest power, and a user sitting in here will don't receive any power. Okay, is only one antenna. This is what he can see. When you come to this guy, you have two antennas. Okay, and by virtue of the electromagnetic theory, what happens is the energy will get narrowed, the beam will get narrow. The user sitting here at this point, this is called beam axis. The axis exactly parallel to the radiating element is called beam axis. The user sitting here will see 2x energy compared to the one antenna case. Since we got 2x energy, obviously SNR will also get boosted. Similarly, if you take 4 radiating elements, you can see the 4x antenna gain almost 6 dB more power compared to the single antenna case. You can see the beam is getting narrower and narrower, and all the power. See, one thing we need to realize is you can't maximize the power. If you try to maximize the power, this regulatory bodies will catch hold and put behind you bar. Okay, the power should be same in all the cases, but it got narrowed instead of spilling over.
Can you repeat the last point? Regulatory authority, you said no. What if we increase?
No, you can't increase the power more than certain limit. Okay, a regulatory body says the transmit power in downlink should be 40 dBm. Okay, and in uplink it should be 23 dBm. If you tend to increase in the greed of improving the coverage and SNR, if we tend to increase the transmit power, they will catch hold. I mean, it's a crime. It's not permitted. Okay. Now the whole object is, with the transmit power we have, how can we channelize it to the user? That's the objective. Okay. Now I will tell you the way we do. You don't put the 23 dBm here, 23 dBm here. You split the power. Yeah. You run an algorithm called a water filling algorithm. You split the power here and here, and make sure that the effective power is still 40 dBm, but the user sitting over here will see the more power. The same is the case here. Using the 4 radiating elements, the beam get more narrower, and you see and this guy sitting here will see the more power, right? Okay, but can we see some problem here? There's a fundamental problem here. Okay, though this is good with 4 antennas, you can see a narrower beam, and user can perceive more received power, and his SNR will get boosted up, and data can improve. There's a problem here. The problem is this guy. See, yeah. The problem is, see, with this setup, okay, you can generate a beam only that is perpendicular to this antenna panel, antenna array, whatever it is. You can't generate a beam with something like this. Okay, if user is sitting here, then he can enjoy the maximum power, but this guy will starve with this setup. Okay, can we do? You can't ask this guy to come over here, right? User can be anywhere as he likes in the network. Okay, but with this configuration, you can generate the beam only like this. Whoever is here, they enjoy the maximum signal gain, and whoever are in a direction other than the beam direction, they will starve. That's the thing we have. For that purpose, the solution. Before that, we see, right, in the current configuration, you see this is called feed to each radiating element. The same feed is given to each of the radiating element. since we give the same feed to each radiating element, you see certain the beam of this type. The thing is, what if we give the independent feeds to each radiating element? Exactly this. If we give the independent feeds, then you can tilt your beam as you want. You can see this is no more perpendicular to the array, but rather it is tilted downwards. In the similar way, you can tilt upwards. You can tilt as you like. The only thing is here is the magnitude will be same, but you change the phase of it. You change the phase of each feed, and then you can tilt the beam as you want. Okay. If you take 0, 30, 60, 90 in a phase, then you get something like this. If you change 0, 90, 270, and 360, some 300, you see something like this. Okay. The thing is, you need to manually change this antenna, this phase shifter, so that you can locate the beam. You can direct the beam accordingly. Okay. That's one thing. You please let me know if you have any confusions here. Is it clear?
Yeah.
So there's one problem with this. You can see there's one more problem with this. See, whatever I'm telling you right from the these are the problems that are being solved over last few years. Okay. And then people realize, see, you can see the beam in the vertical axis. You can either tilt upwards, downwards, something like. What if? How can you? If suppose if you are sitting here, somewhere here, or somewhere here, or somewhere here, you can't steer the beams, right? You can't steer the beams in this with this setup. You can't steer the beams in this direction. Okay, because all the antenna elements are stacked vertically. You can't steer the beam in the horizontal axis. This is called vertical axis. This is the horizontal axis. You can't steer the beam horizontally. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, see, this is what exactly we did in 2G, the leftmost one. The middle one was we did in 4G, and this is what we are going to do in 5G. Okay, in 4G we have antennas in vertical axis where you can steer the beam only in one direction. In 5G, which is called massive MIMO also, you got the antennas in 2D grid. You can see, right? It's a 2D grid here. The antennas, the back panel reflects antennas. These are antennas. You by the suitable combination of these antennas, you take any grid like this. Okay, you can steer the beam both in vertical direction and in horizontal directions as well. Got it, right? You can steer the beam in vertical and as well as in the horizontal direction. This is what the massive MIMO is meant for. You pick any number of antennas you want and steer the beam accordingly. Okay. Yeah. What it serves is the typical application of this is currently today, as of now, you can see our antennas are mounted on the hilltop, on the rooftop, or some what you say, and some heights. Okay.
High-rise buildings, kind of. Yes.
Yeah. But it's no more needed now. Okay. Using this 2D antenna array, you can serve the user who are sitting higher than the actual antenna. You can see there's this guy right on the top is located higher than the actual antenna height, right? You can send the beams to him as well, and also you can send the beams who are sitting on the ground, on the ground. You can serve these users, and also you can serve the guys who are sitting on your head also. Yeah. See, this is why we need the massive MIMO in 5G, and this is called FD MIMO or 2D, whatever they name it. Yeah. Before closing this, I'll just have a couple of questions to you. See, there's a problem. See, one problem is for two, let's say we have three users, one guy is here, one guy is here, and one guy is somewhere here. Okay, to serve these three users, you need to manually change the phase angles of this rotating element. You need to do it for each user independently, right? Then only the beams will go to him appropriately. Yeah, the question is it possible to, this is called unlock beam forming. You do them, they are the unlock components, they are the physical unlock components. You go them and you modify the phase angles and steer the beam accordingly. Okay, the question is, can we do it digitally? That's the first question we need to answer. The other is, can we do it what to say, in hybrid format? Can there be a digital and analog combined? That have its own reasons, because digital will see severe losses. Digital beamforming is possible, but it sees losses. To minimize losses and to digitally steer the beam, can we go with hybrid beam? That's the second question we need to answer. The third question is, with this antenna setup, okay, you can have one beam at a time, right? That means you can serve one user at a time. That's what it means actually. Okay, because the phase angles are fixed, it will generate a certain beam pattern. You can serve that particular user. Is it possible to generate using the same antenna panel? Is it possible to generate the multiple beams simultaneously so that multiple users can be served? That's the third question we need to answer. The fourth question is, if there are multiple users sitting on the same beam, okay, like there's one guy here, one guy here, one guy here, one guy here, how to serve this multiple users sitting on the same beam? Okay, these are the four questions. I hope you got what I mean to say.
So presently this beam forming is done manually.
This is called unlock beam forming. No, I am not saying presently. There are methods. Yeah, these are the four questions which need to be answered. Some are already answered. I actually worked on this part, especially multiplexing of beams. These last two items. Okay. And by the way, whatever I explained till now is not part of my thesis. Okay. This is where I have contributed in terms of algorithms. I think we are done with the time, it seems like. Yeah. In next session, I will try to, if there's next session, then I will try to explain how we'll do, how people do, and how we did this, how we address this fourth question.
I think that continuation is required, I think. Continuation in the sense, if next session, if that can be covered, that would be better.
Okay. Yeah, let me see.
Are you expecting the answers from the participants, or you would like to share?
No. Some things I have worked on this, but what I'm saying is, these are the four problems that industry is looking at. Some are solved, like digital beamforming is a solved problem, more or less. It's solved, I mean by pretty much solved. And it's hybrid beamforming, and then these are called spatial multiplexing. How do you recover one user from the other, and all those things. In fact, the bottom two is more about the interference cancellation. How do you cancel the interference because of the other user?
Okay.
People can look into these areas. If there is any communication guy, then at least with respect to this massive MIMO, people can look into these areas. I also tell that where the industry is, I didn't mention, I forgot to put that slide. Currently, people are more concerned about the current problem that people are addressing with respect to industry are uh, how to enhance the cell coverage, how to bring up the new mechanism to enhance the cell coverage, the 5G. Okay, there should be the trade-off between the cell coverage and the data rate. How to do that? That's the one thing people are looking for new designs. And other thing is the control messaging. How effectively can we send the control messages from base station to mobile and mobile to base station? This is other area where people are exploring. At least with respect to, and other few more areas are how to enhance the link reliability to enable the URLLC communication. That's one thing people are looking at. I think there are the few areas where people are looking at. So that's all from my side.
Okay. I have one question now, one doubt. I don't know. I have not seen anything, but in the papers I read that lot of not so positive things are also being discussed about 5G, that it is going to affect the health of the people and all that. So how true is it, and can you just share something about that?
So, I mean, with respect to what? With respect to, I mean, to say health problems with respect to the transmission power or what?
That I don't know. Just I was overhearing. I don't know. There was some movie that was there in. I mean, 6 months back or something. In my office, also people were continuously discussing about that. This 5G is going to affect the health of the people, which is not so good. It might be providing a lot of more benefits. I mean, like you are saying that the what is that? The speed, data speed, and everything will increase. But at the same time, it will be more harmful for human. So how much true is it, or I don't know. I have not understood that particular problem statement of 5G.
Sir, I think you were asking a right question to a wrong person. At least with respect to me, I think if you are concerned about electromagnetic waves and all, I don't think electromagnetic penetration will be, because at least for humans, I think I was discussing this topic with the IIT Madras professor sometime back, not in context of 5G. He told me that at least we make sure that whatever the limits that the FCC specifies to in the context of transmit power, it will be at least 20 dB away from the harmful signals for what actually harms the human being. That's what he told me.
Okay.
That part I can make, and electromagnetic waves I can ensure, but regarding others, I think I can say I don't know.
Oh, okay. One more question I have is where do we stand as a country, especially in the implementation or deployment of this 5G, comparing to other countries? Like you have in the beginning slide, you have given somewhere that China has already deployed and US. Okay. So where do we stand?
I can say we are nowhere.
So we are not nowhere means we are not even near to that, or will it take some time to get 5G here?
Yeah, it takes us at least a couple of years in India to get the things. I can just show you the slide also. Yeah, this is the thing. Okay, China is very way ahead than any other country in 5G. One thing I heard from the many prominent professors over the years is whoever have this communication technology, this communication technology will rule other technologies. I don't know what their logic, but this is how it is. This is why all these conspiracy theories are built around. And this is what it is. One thing is very clear, that China is very way ahead than any other country in 5G, both with respect to FR1 and FR2. though their deployments are mostly in FR1, but they, especially Huawei got everything in the city, like got infrastructure, they got the base station designs, they got the mobiles and everything they have, and ZTE and HiSilicon. These are the major players in China. And now I told you, right, where we stand today are in terms of assembling and testing. We stand here.
Yeah,
Okay. No, that's where we stand now. You believe me? I think our Indian bodies are celebrating that we got some essential patents into standard, but they're only 0.05% of what they got globally.
What could be the reason that here the contribution towards research as well as system design is very less? Acha, the other, I mean, if I frame the question in other words, the system design engineers, I mean, are there the Indian origin guys who are there in US or other countries who are actually contributing, who because of their terms and conditions of job, they are not able to contribute to India, something of that sort? Or do you see all the system design people from the other than India countries?
Yeah, sir. I think till at least very recently, like till 2019 and 2020, all the system people are from outside. Okay, all the R&D activities of Qualcomm will be done in the US. All the R&D activities of the Samsung will be done at Korea. Okay, even MediaTek, all the R&D activities of MediaTek are done in Korea. And Chinese guys, they do all the activities from Beijing and Shanghai. We very less R&D activities is being done in India. You can see, right, among I can tell you, I don't know if you can show them or not. Just show you. I will share you. I don't know. I need to log into 3GPP. In each 3GPP meeting, this will tell the volumes to you. In each 3GPP meeting, I can see at least 500 contributions from various companies. Okay, from 500, among the 500 contributions, only 3 or 4 will be from India. That too from our group. The problem is, I think I mentioned this in one of the MFIRD meetings also. At least in India, with respect to communication, I'm not about other industries. In communication industry, academics and industry are quite disjoint. You can't even get you can't even get one element in the intersection between these two, between academics and industry. They're quite disjoint.
I agree, fully agree with that point. Yeah,
that's the main reason, sir. In India, right, all R&D, whatever R&D, so-called R&D, will be done in mostly in the academics, or academics collaborated with what you say, with some firms like CDAC and all.
yeah.
But that's not the case in other countries.
Yeah. Any other participants? Please, if you have any questions, you please ask. Okay. So meanwhile, Ashraful is saying something. Meanwhile, Jazakallah, Sibghat, at least I started getting the understanding of this communication technology thing. I was not aware of how all these, especially the mobile networks work. Just I knew that 2G, 3G, 4G are there, and they have started talking about 5G also. That's it I was aware of till now. But at least I have got some idea about that. And meanwhile, last time when I was presenting my work, so you were saying that there is some sort of use case that you are seeing where we can do something related to authentication and all. So luckily in Google Scholars notification, I received one mail wherein there is one research paper that I have got. Someone has written, I don't know. So they are talking about 5G technology, and one of the authors is from IIIT Hyderabad. So what he has done is he is doing some authentication in 5G. I'll share that, and if possible, let us try to explore that particular paper. That is what I has just 2 days back I saw that paper. Okay,
Oh,
and one more thing is I don't know how that these two things will be combined, because last time also you are throwing some light on that particular aspect. Do you see that some use case of authentication also in this?
At least whatever that I speak today is not with respect to that, but definitely there is. Yeah, I will, if possible, I think I will try to get some information regarding that as well, more information that can help us in setting up a problem statement. I think it's very much needed. I think people, at least in academics, in US university, people are more concerned about the 5G security. They're saying data rates are fine. How about security? People start exploring them.
Okay,
Let me get back to you. I think I did. After your talk, I didn't go through that much. I was busy in other activities. Let me.
Hello. Yeah. So okay, I'll also read that paper and then I'll share it with you. And now coming to this organization of this particular talks, like small mashwara we'll do, because Sathis are also there. I mean, next talk, I think this 12:30 is quite risky, because generally our Zohar namaz is at 1:30, right? So actually we planned earlier to start at 11:30 and all, but due to the unavailability of this Zoom ID also, these difficulties were there. So somewhere I'll try to resolve this particular issue, inshallah. So and then we'll inform also about the new ID as well as, or the same ID, with what time we'll start the sessions. Next session, what we'll do and whose session could be, can please switch on your mics and please give that opinion. Haris, will you be able to deliver a talk on your topic? Or Ashraful, can you just coordinate with Haris? I think he might have.
Okay, I will text him.
Yeah. We'll try to decide at the earliest, and then Sibaghat bhai, when would you like to have the continuation of this session or the next episode of this?
I think I need some time as well, because I am occupied with other things.
Yeah. Okay.
At least next immediate Sunday is not, next immediate slot is not possible, because I have some other commitment.
Okay. No problem. So we'll try to identify someone else. Okay.
Sure.
So can I request Ashraful to just check with Haris and others also, and then try to.
I think
decide. Yeah. You are not audible, Ashraful. You are saying something?
I have texted him. I think he is not online now.
Okay. ठीक है. So ठीक, inshallah. Irfan is also there. Why, Irfan, would you like to deliver a talk or something? Your mic symbol itself is not there. Irfan had completed his master's from HCU, and now he is doing PhD in IoT security, I think, from Delhi Technological University or IIT. I'm not remembering properly. So we can rope in Irfan, and through Irfan or somebody else. I'll also try from my side if anyone can deliver a talk. And Ashraful, you also talk to Haris. Okay.
Okay, I
How
will
about,
talk.
how about Saib bhai?
Dr. Saif Abrar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try with him. Actually, he shies away from the talks. He's a very talented person, but I have to come through Dr. Saab to him, Dr. Altaf Saab. So I'll try with him also. See, the talks that are pending is Dr. Saif's talk, Imran's talk, and there are other brothers who are there in our MFRD group. So I need to check with them as well. Okay, so I think we'll close the session now because if we want to go for namaz for at 2 o'clock, still we have the chance, right? So 10 minutes are there. Jazakallah again, Bhai Sibghat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala जो है आपकी मेहनत को कबूल करे. I mean, 11 patents is just a dream for people like me. It's a very good achievement. And mashallah, like last time you have already updated us that you have got 3 patents granted from US, right? US
Yeah.
patents, mashallah. I had to, yesterday I spoke to Dr. Altaf Saab, requesting him to be here for, a brief talk, motivational talk. But he's too busy these days in his hospital because almost more than half of his hospital is turned to COVID hospital. So, and he is in charge of most of those activities. So he is going too much busy these days. So I wanted to update about you. He would have surely been happy hearing that. So, but the time was not there. Inshallah, I'll surely update him also.
Yeah,
And really a proud moment for all of us. It's a very good achievement. MashaAllah. अच्छा ये पूरे जो 11 है आपके except that Indian patent, remaining 10 are all granted or how many are granted in that?
No. 4 got granted. 3 likely will grant because we got a clearance for it, and 4 are pending.
Okay. MashaAllah. ठीक है. Okay, so अभी दुआ पढ़ लेंगे हम लोग. बहुत जज़ाकल्लाह भाई. ठीक है. Ashraful will close the session now. Okay. جزاك الله سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك